Welcome to this Monday 5 p.m. session, and we have something more in store today about how homework is very important before you get into the market to trade. So we have these posts which we put up on the website under the forum section. So this is we have the website on screen, and we have this forum section where we have all the reports updated, and we have the top to bottom approach in Yeah, we have the top to bottom approach when we are doing the trades and marking the levels. So we always start with the monthly chart, and as soon as a calendar month is done, we put up a report and we put up the important references. And we also make sure we mention those important references which we carry forward for the new month and the new series once it is noted. So we have the monthly uh, report of June, and you can see it consists of a daily chart of what entire month of June did. And June was a neutral extreme profile to the upside, and we can see how we made an attempt to probe lower, got this buying tail on 13th of June, which was that India-Pakistan war news, and from there we made a trending move higher, and we went on to make new highs into the close. So this is what we did in June. And as this is the monthly profile of June, and we had this extension handle at 25317 and a close at the highs. So we have this zone, monthly zones, which are marked, which is very important. And in the monthly zone, the first level which we mark is the rollover point, which comes to us on the expiry day. So when we are uh, closing a series, we look at the volumes which are coming in the new series. So for the July series, the rollover point was at 25610. This was marked on the expiry day, which was 26th of June. And the other two important levels which get finalized at the end of the calendar month is the VWAP of the June series, which is at 25008, and then the POC, which is at 25109. So these are the three important levels which we carry forward when a new month is starting. The rollover point, which was 25610, the POC, which was 25109, and the VWAP of the series, which was 25008. So VWAP of the series was all the more important because this was a neutral extreme profile. So in market profile, we know two kinds of profile, the VWAP becomes very important. One is the trend up profile or a trend down profile, which the VWAP of that particular profile is considered very important going forward. And similar thing is for the neutral extreme profile. Why these two structures are important? Because they are telling us one of the party was dominant on that day. So that is the reason the VWAP of that structure, be it on any time frame, becomes important. So because we are looking at the monthly structure, these two levels were very important for the entire month of July. So this was what was for Nifty, and Bank Nifty also was a similar neutral extreme profile to the upside, wherein same thing, 13th we made this new low, we got support at a previous VPOC. 55300 has been a known support in Bank Nifty spot, and from there we went on to make this new all-time high of 57600. So these were the levels which we had marked out for Bank Nifty. So I'll just quickly mention the levels, and we will go to what we have done so far in the month of July. The rollover point in Bank Nifty is 57260. The POC was at 56008, and the VWAP was 56200. So you can see how these references which were taken at the close of June held so much of importance, and you can relate to these levels even today. When we got the bounce, I'll come to what we did today in both spot as well as futures, and you can see how it was related to these monthly references. So to start with, let us go to the Nifty monthly chart and see what we have done in the month of June. The references have been given. So what was the rollover point? Rollover point in Nifty. This is the monthly chart on screen. So I'll just make a quick review of how we approach the top to bottom approach and see what is happening on the monthly, then come down to the weekly, and then we finally get to the daily. And while doing so, we have levels marked out for each day. Even in spot, we have the hypos marked out in levels, spot levels, and then we have a daily report which is published in the futures, Nifty futures and Bank Nifty futures, where we mark in the important references. And I'll go through that also, the weekly report, the latest weekly report, as well as the latest daily report, and show how these reports consist, the important homework which needs to be done before a trading session is approached. So coming to the Nifty spot monthly chart, you can see how we stalled right at that rollover point in spot. Although the rollover point is derived from the futures, it is always important reference in spot also. So you can see how right at the open of the month, the rollover point was showing us rejection. And that is the reason we have got this trend down move in Nifty spot. And what we have done in this trend down move, we have gone on to take off this extension handle of 25317, tag this POC of 25109, and test this neutral extreme VWAP, which was at 25007. So in doing so, we have formed, structure wise, we have formed a trend down profile. In fact, this is not an typical trend down, it is more a double distribution trend down, because we have left this extension handle at this 25331, and we are looking to form a balance. We started with the balance higher in this zone, and then this, when this 25331 gave way, we have come down to test this important levels, and we are forming a balance right now in the lower part. So how you can see how, if I break this into, I'll come down to the daily chart once we discuss the weekly report, so that will be much easier. So what we have done on the monthly, we can see we have, on June was an elongated profile. So it was expected that the July would definitely give us a balance or a retracement to this up move. And that is what has happened. We stalled at the rollover point. We made a balance in the first 6-7 sessions. It was a nice balance with the POC at this 25452. And I'll come to the weekly chart and show you how at the weekly POC, we were stalling a couple of weeks back, and that told us that the upside is getting limited and we can look for a probe lower in the coming sessions. And that is what happened. We made way with this extension handle here, and we hit the important monthly references which were uh, there on the report also. So this is what we have done on the monthly time frame. And let us now quickly have a check of what we have done on the Bank Nifty. So Bank Nifty also, you can see how it was a close around the highs. So it was expected. And just to revert, what we did in May was form a nice balance. So that is what is the theme in market profile. From a balance, you get an imbalance. From an imbalance, you get a balance. So when we form this inside bar, you can see the May profile was completely inside April, and it was a nice Gaussian curve. And what we did in June was made a move away from this. Value was always higher, and the probe lower where we tested this POC showed us a buying tail. So this was telling us that the PLR on the higher time frame is to the upside. And that is the reason we went on to form this neutral extreme profile and gave this imbalance on the monthly time frame. So after this imbalance, it was but right that we develop a balance in the month of July. So that is what happened. Although we made new highs right at the first or second session, we could not sustain, and we left this small tail at the highs. And what we have see, we can see is we have formed a nice Gaussian curve which represents a balance. And what we have done is we have broken below this POC 56608 on Friday with an extension handle. But what, and right, you can see where we have stopped. 56200 was the VWAP, and that is where we have stopped. So what is the monthly time frame doing? It is keeping us in sync with what the larger order is in the auction. So you will definitely not want to go short at 56200, knowing that it is the monthly series VWAP, which is a very important support. You would want to see some good sell side volumes in the order flow for to take a fresh short position here, because this is where you would want to book out, come out of short positions, short trades. So that is what we did initially when we opened the month of July. We were negotiating at this rollover point 57260, and I'll show you how the last 2 weeks value area high was right at this rollover point. So this is what happens when you know on the monthly time frame, this is the reference. You then see what is happening on the weekly time frame at the same level, and then you come down to the daily, and then order flow will show us buy and sell volumes, and it'll give us signals. So at every level you will know what signals are coming in, how the supply and demand is matched, and what the direction for the day could be. And that is what we make use of in trading, because trading is not a easy game. You will definitely need to do homework, and you will need to understand, have a process and go by that. It cannot be a casino where you just enter, log into the terminal, random pick up random trades and look to make money. That is the reason 94%, which is the figure which SEBI keeps putting up, of the traders are losing, because most of them do not have a process, do not do the homework, and do not know what is happening structure wise, and they don't have a clear step by step process of how to trade, what to trade, and when to trade. So coming back to this bank nifty spot chart, what we have done here today is take a bounced right from this VWAP. This was the low of Friday. We opened higher today. I'll come to the shorter time frame chart, and we will do a revisit of what we did. And you can see how we have come back about this POC. So what is it doing? Bank Nifty is again forming a balance. So that is what the theme is on the monthly. You can see I have combined today's chart, and you can see how neat Gaussian curve on the monthly time frame is seen. So when you're seeing this on the higher time frame, you know that you cannot be too bullish or too bearish for the month. You will have to understand what the ranges are, mark out the levels, and accordingly trade as per the signals come at those levels. So what would be the trade if you are getting responsive buying plus initiative buying signals at this 56,200 or at this 56,600? You know that you can look for more upside with this 57, the POC of the month being the first target, and this value area high being the next target. You can see how the value area high of the month is right where the rollover point is 57260, and this was also seen in our weekly charts. So this is how the monthly is spaced up. I'll come down now to the weekly report, and this is the weekly report which is been published yesterday, and this is from 14th to 18th August. So see, similar kind of homework is done in this. We look at what the Nifty has done on the daily time frame. You have the daily chart compared to what the previous week was. So you can see how last week, and we have the daily markers also. So you can see how these boxes, every box is holding important information. The box in red is telling you it was a down day, the box in green is telling you it's an up day, and the blue box is a neutral profile. So you can see how last week was more of red days than green. So it was easy to say that the profile wise also, value wise also, we would have formed lower value. So what did we do structure wise last week? We made a lower open. We tested the monthly POC, and expectedly we got some demand coming back because we closed higher, and then we made an attempt to probe higher. You can see last week this weekly profile has got two extension handles, and to coming back to this, you can see this MEG. I'll just this MEG, the in the weekly profile of 7th to 11th July, you can see how the highs were stalling right at this previous week's POC, which was at 25548, and 25555 I think was the high we made last week, and stalled right there. So what was this telling? The weekly POC is stalling the up move. That means the PLR is to the downside, and that is what happened later in that week. What we did was we left this extension handle at 25331, and we left another extension handle at 25244. So these two were the extension handles, and we had marked them on the uh, daily report, and it was covered in the hypo. So you can see how even the brief which we had given, implementing the 80% rule in the weekly value, it is talking about this 7th to 11th profile hitting the POC, which was the first objective. 25546 was the first objective, but it could not sustain above it, which forced the longs to book out and invited the sellers to step in. So this also gives you a small brief of what has happened. So it keeps you in sync with who of the buyer or the seller is at an advantage. So what we did, it was a neutral extreme weekly profile with overlapping to lower value. And so this week what we have done is we opened lower, we made an attempt to make new lows, but then we made an reversal. This reversal, you can see, just like how we got poor highs in the week prior, we got poor highs even last week. And where did this poor highs came? This poor highs came right at the extension handle which we had marked. 25245, 25255, and 25238 were the highs which we made. And you can see how we formed this 3-day balance in spot overlapping value. From here, balance to imbalance happens on all time frame. So I'll come to the futures chart and we'll explain how Friday and today the open type which we give so much of importance was a very clear signal of which direction you need to take the look for trades, and both of them gave us some rewarding trades. So you have this 3-day balance in Nifty spot. So you know the next session you can give you a imbalance, and we got that imbalance in form of a big open rejection reverse start. Although the seller did not do a good job after the seaside was done, we still got a nice initiative selling tail. So the weekly, we have a small brief of what we did in the week. We began the week with a test of the June POC and VWAP. We have these references covered all month, and then we made a low on Monday, which forming a balanced profile, indicating some demand coming back, after which it probed higher on Tuesday and Wednesday, testing previous week's lower extension handle. So we had two extension handles, 2521, 244 and 25331. So it could just manage similar highs at 25255, signaling sellers holding this zone. And it was confirmed by a small initiative selling tail on Thursday, leaving a swing high. And then we had a nice Gaussian 3-day Gaussian curve with a close around the lows. So the balance was seen on Thursday, and the close away from balance was also noticed on at close on Thursday. So it was already giving us a cue that it wants to move away from that balance. So Friday, when it gave that strong open, it went on to break below the lows of Monday, and on the weekly time frame we have formed a neutral extreme profile to the downside. So what the the value was a balanced one. So we had this value as our reference. So as long as we were staying below this 25056, we were expecting this auction to continue lower toward this unvisited weekly VPOC of 24790, which is here on the chart. I'll just mark it so that this unvisited POC from 16th to 20th of June, provided we stayed below this value, the weekly value, and this POC becomes our swing reference 25190. So this was what we were expecting uh, for this week. So what did we do today? We'll just have a quick look. I'll open up the weekly chart and see what we did today, but let us just go through the Bank Nifty spot also. So along with this weekly report and the structure, we also put out hypos for every day. These hypos are based on spot levels. So you can see clearly how the hypos for today was this 24968 on the downside. We were bearish below this, and the immediate reference below this was 24930. What was this 24930? It was the value area low of Friday. So in market profile, we trade value and not price. So we want to see how value, what the auction is doing compared to previous value. So if we are below previous value, we would be bearish. So that is why we had this as our next hypo. And then we had this 24891, which was a reference from 23rd of June, where we made a big range extension to the upside as our lower reference. And then on the upside, we had the value area high as our first hypo. So till we get above 24978, we would not be bullish for today. And then we had this 25027, which was the halfback from Friday. And then we had this 25089, which was the ATPO halfback. I'll open up the daily chart and we will go through what we have done today compared to these hypos. And this will tell you why these hypos are important and how you can make use of these hypos when you are trading live. So that is the reason we come up with these reports. We do this homework and we put up these references so that you can make use of them. It hardly takes 3 minutes to go through these reports, make a note of that references. You can even mark these up on the as KRLs on your chart. And we also provide this chart with the KRLs marked as per the hypos which are provided. So you can see how this 3-day value, the lows was at 25133, and that is where we got rejected on Friday. We made this long liquidation. So this open rejection reverse was because we made an attempt to probe here, got rejected, and we went in the other direction. We took out this low and we tested this VPOC of 24946. So that is what we did. So that is the reason the value area high was our first hypo on the upside, and on the downside 24930 and 24891 was the lower reference. So this is what was there in the report of today for Nifty spot. A quick look into Bank Nifty, and then we'll discuss both what has happened in both today. So Bank Nifty also on the weekly time frame, you can see how we made a lower open, tested the monthly POC, and these lows which you are seeing on Monday, last Monday, E and J, were right at where the monthly POC of 56608 was. So when they are not breaking, it is telling you that the buyers are holding this zone, and that is the reason we made an attempt to probe higher. And you can see how the market profile setup which we have of the 80% rule played out to the T. How we entered this weekly value on Tuesday we tagged this POC, which was the first reference, which was at 57121, I think. And then we continued to probe higher on Wednesday. But on Wednesday, when we tested this value area high, and I was telling you how the value area high of the last 2 weeks was near to that rollover point. So when you are stalling at the rollover point 57260, you know that the demand is not coming in at that level. So the seller is getting a signal that he can come in and drive the auction in his favor. So that is what happened. You can see only one single TPO of J at the value area high, weekly value area high. So this is showing us rejection. This single TPO at this value area high is showing us rejection. If this gets accepted, that means we would have formed more TPOs above this value area high, and then we could have looked for a tag of this 57422. So but because it was not happening, this was telling us that the seller is more dominant here. And what we got the next day was a drive down right from that value area. So and what we did in this drive down is we not only completed the 80% rule in the weekly value, you can see how but we closed below this value. So this was a bearish sign. It was telling us that the auction wants to continue lower, and that is how you get the cues on the weekly references and then the daily chart. Because we were closing at the lows and below this weekly value, it was very much expected that we are going to test this VPOC and break below this uh, support which we got on Monday. And you can see how we got a initiative selling tail there right at that 56600 level. And what we did, we promptly went on to test the lower monthly reference, which was the VWAP series VWAP of 56200. So this 56205, this 56205 which we formed low, you can connect this chart right to this extension handle you have on this week. In fact, this was covered in the hypos which we had. We had a extension handle on the weekly profile in the last week of June, 23rd to 27 June profile, which was right at that 56205, and that is where we made a low. So that is the reason we have these this top to bottom approach, so that we are aware about what the auction is doing on the higher time frames, and the higher time frame levels, are they respected or not. And it was just a coinciding reference that 56205 was also the series VWAP. So what did we do last week? You can see Bank Nifty was not as bearish as Nifty, because we had a normal day, then we had a green, we had a neutral day, but the close was definitely bearish. We had back to back normal variation day down with initiative selling tails. So what was the reference for today? For yes, for this week, value wise, we formed overlapping value. It was completely overlapping on both sides. So we were looking for this extension handle. We had an extension handle at 56594, which was our reference. So and we were expecting this extension handle to show us change of polarity on any bounce. And on the downside, we on the downside below 56205, we were expecting Bank Nifty to go for the lower VPOC tag, which is this, from 16th to 28th June, 55682, and then we have a buying tail from 9 to 13th of June from at 55376. So these two are the lower important references, and you can see these were the hypos for today. In fact, this 556,350, which is marked as the bullish hypo for spot, was exactly the low we made in futures. So you can see how these levels always overlap and give us cues both in futures as well as spot. And you can another point I wanted to show was the value area high of this week is right at 57260, which is again same as what the value area high was last week also. So it is showing us 57260 is not getting any acceptance. So that is the reason we were probing lower, and in the lower probe, the buyers zone would get tested, and that is what we have done. So what we have done today, let us just have a look on the downside. We So you can see how we completed all these hypos on the upside today. And I'll come to the chart of today. Let's start with the Nifty spot chart. And on the weekly structure, we always give the POC the most importance. So you can see how today's open was lower, and I'll split this daily into, in fact, I'll switch it to a daily chart in spot, and which also has the hypos marked out. So you can see this 24891 was our lower objective. So we opened and probed lower. The open was around here, and we went on to break below this value area low. We tested the lower reference of 24891. But what did we do in B period? So B period low, you can see, is right where the value area low was of previous day. And then what we did, we went on to complete the 80% rule, and then we remained above this. We went on to leave an extension handle at this high, which was coinciding with this halfback, which was also marked as a hypo. So if this is happening, that the bias for the day is changing. When we opened, we were looking for more downside, but once we left, we tested this, we got back into previous value, completed the 80% rule, and took off this halfback. We knew that now we are looking for a test higher, and that is what has happened. We went on to make this marginal new highs in D, which kind of stalled. It did stall because we were negotiating a initiative selling tail. So that is the reason we made a pullback, and you can see how this pullback in J stopped right at previous value area high. So when it is telling you value area high is being held, that the PLR is to the upside, and that is the reason you could expect a spike into the close, which we were in the VLD. At the VTrender live desk, we were discussing how if the K period holds, we can expect a spike into the close. And that was only because structure wise, we were seeing in the market profile chart, the previous value was taken out in the B and was held ever since. And the pullback which we made in J was holding this value area high. So that is the reason we have gone on to take off this reference of 25089, and we will look to uh, stay bullish if we stay above today's value. So what have we done today? Value wise, we have formed higher value. Although range wise, we formed a lower range. So that is the reason we don't trade price, we trade value. If you just see price, you have a lower high and a lower low in Nifty. That means it is bearish. But if you see value, we have formed completely higher value. So that is telling us, and we have also left an initiative buying tail at new lows. So that is telling us the buyers have come back, but what do they have to do? They will have to stay above this value area high of today. We have closed in a spike, so spike rules will be in play. The spike high would be the highs of today, which is 25111, which is again coinciding with the monthly POC. So you can see how the monthly references are so important. It is not something which will be broken in 3 minutes and they will not come back. When it is a higher time frame reference, it will make multiple attempts to either support or break. And that is why it has come back to the monthly POC at close today, and this will again be a reference for tomorrow. We will see what is happening at this level tomorrow, and here you have a nice clean candidate of 80% rule. If we get above this 25133, you are looking for a test of this VPOC and this value area high. So this is how we will do our homework, and on the downside we will be bearish only below this value area low or this halfback of today, which is at 24996. POC would be a neutral reference, and we will see if we are testing the POC whether we are getting acceptance or rejection. If we get a buy side tail here, then we can look for more upside. So that is what we will do when it comes to the spot. On the downside, break into this will give us again it is, although it is a very small range, it is still valid for the 80% rule to play out. And remember, the 80% rule is also being played out on a higher time frame. Bank Nifty, we saw the monthly profile is a nice balanced one. So once we have got back into the value area low of the monthly developing monthly profile, we are looking at the test which it already did today, the POC, and above the POC it will be the value area high of the monthly, which is at 57260. So those will continue to be our references all month. So this is how we are placed in spot. I'll make a quick look now at the future chart and discuss days. And before this, I'll just want to share the daily report which we update. Okay, I'll just go to the forum. Let me start with the daily report, which has all the details and the necessary nuances which you need to know if you are a market profiler. So this is what we did on Friday. You have the market profile chart, you have the closing price with the high and low, and we have the structure, normal variation to the downside. Then we have the open type. Open type is very important because the open type sets up what kind of a day it could be. So if the open type is a strong one, which it was on Friday, and I'll come to how we identify that, you know that you can look for a trade in that direction, and that is what we got both on Friday as well as Monday. And we have these open types covered on the website. The link is shared, glossary section. You can, in case you are not aware about the open types, we have covered everything related to market profile, the setups, the open type, the date types, the nuances, 80% rule. So all of these are covered in the glossary section. So if you have any doubt or if you want to go through any of these terms, you can just go to the link which is given and read through it. So what we have the open type and we have the contracts. We also give an indication about whether the contracts were below average or above average, because when it is above average, you know that you can expect more move, or at least it should be average. Below average will not give you that much confidence. So you can see how it's the open type was a strong one, which is why we continued. The initial balance became an average one. We got a 100 pointer, and then the day type became a normal variation because the volumes continued to increase. We had an above average volumes clocked on Friday, and that is the reason we got a range extension also. And we went on to make those lows of 24981. So we give a small brief, and you can see how Nifty had given a vital cue closing around the value area low of the 3-day composite. This is the 3-day composite, and I'll open up the Nifty profile chart and we'll have a look at that also. We will revise both what we did on Friday and today. So 25778 was our reference, and what we saw was a strong open rejection reverse just below that. So resulted in a trending move lower, not just in the initial balance, which is the IB. The initial balance is an important setup concept in market profile. Hence, we have that covered in the daily report also. So open type will tell you what the auction is, which direction the auction wants to move. The initial balance will further give the confirmation and give you the range of what the first hour range is. As per that range, you can then expect the range to expand in the coming TPOs. So what we saw was trending move lower, also extended with a rare seaside extension handle at 25070. So we also mark these extension handles whenever you get a reference, because the after the initial balance was over, you can see the initial balance low was at 25070. So here is the difference between a typical seaside extension and the good seaside extension. This was an initiative player who came in the seaside on Friday because he just moved the auction away from the initial balance low. Else, a typical seaside would happen on very low volumes and would give us a RB bar and come back to test the VWAP, which did not happen on Friday. I'll open up the order flow and the market profile chart after this, and we will see how it was on Friday. So what we did was, again, we made similar lows of 24981 and 982. So similar lows does not give you confidence of sellers doing a good job. It is showing us exhaustion. So what we did was we closed right at the POC. Value was completely lower, but we closed right at the prominent POC, which was the opening reference for us. And not just the opening reference, it would be the day's reference for us. So just like how the weekly POC we saw was stalling the Nifty up move, same thing on the daily time frame. You will look at what the previous day's POC is doing. So after this, we have a link to the market profile chart. We have the daily zones, and we in this daily zones we have all the important references which you want to remember. We have the failed auction which was there, which got negated, and this negation of the failed auction gave us the 180R to the downside. We also had a failed auction on 3rd of July. So this is coinciding with what we saw in spot. In spot, we saw a responsive selling tail at the rollover point. In futures, we got a failed auction. And you can see how that failed auction gave us the 280 target of 25219. And this failed auction has not yet been revisited. So this is now a swing reference in Nifty futures. So we also mark the HVNs, the developing HVNs for the series. And this double star which is there is the POC, series POC. So if you can recall, we had that big indicator which we added M flow and couple of weeks back, and right on the second day of the M flow, or I think on the same day, we had that big M flow red which we saw right at this 25615. It was showing that longs were liquidating. From there, we have fallen to what lows we made today in Nifty futures, which was 24920. So that was the indication. So that is why it is very important to keep track of where the series POC is and what is happening at the series POC. So that red inflow was showing us that the longs are coming out, after which we got sellers coming in. So because we knew that the series POC has shifted to the top, we knew that profit booking is done by the buyers, and now the sellers are taking it lower. Same thing, we have the weekly zones also marked in this. So where we cover the weekly series chart, because this is Nifty futures and settlement is on Thursdays. We have the weekly series chart from the Friday to the Thursday reference. So we have the link also to the weekly chart which you can open, and we have a brief of what the weekly references are and what would be the levels going forward. So these are all very important references. This monthly zone is the same what we saw in the monthly report. So we have just taken it from there and put it here because it is very important for us to know on a daily basis what the higher time frame references are. And these were the business areas for the futures today. And you can see how our lower reference was this 252026 below the POC of Monday for of Friday, and the 24981, which was previous day's low, was the lower reference. And then we had this 4-day POC from 16 to 19 June at 24946, which was the lower reference. So we will open up today's chart and see based on this how we traded today and what we did. And then we have the Bank Nifty futures, same thing, open type, open rejection reverse. And in Bank Nifty, you can see this was above average. That is the reason we continue to have an above average uh, initial balance, and the volumes were also continuing to be above average. Hence, we extended and we got a 546 point range, and we made these lows of 56354. So you can see if you are getting an above average start and even the initial balance is volumes is above average, you can expect the market profile setup of range extension, the 1.5 to 2 IB extension, come in on those days. If these are below average, then you will need to be happy with smaller ranges. So again, a small brief, if not only accepted the spike close but went on to form an open rejection reverse exactly from the 2-day POC. So you can see in the chart, this is the 2-day POC at 56,900, which was a support. And what the auction did, Bank Nifty did, I'll open up the futures chart and show that to you. And we will see how we got an extension handle at this 56601, which was right where the monthly POC was. So this is what we need to know. And once we got this extension handle, we got a quick drop to 56365. Yes, after the lows of D period, then the auction got back into balance mode. So with the prominent POC shifting lower to 56416, but the value was completely lower and we would have traded with as per today's value. So we have this POC and VWAP marked up. We also have the failed auctions, and similar to what we saw, HVNs of the series marked up. So 57336 is the series POC of July in Bank Nifty. So we will need to be aware about that. Weekly zones in Bank Nifty is similar to what we do in spot. It is the calendar week because we no longer have weekly settlement. So that is why we have this mark from Monday to Friday. And then we have the monthly zones. These are similar to what we saw in the monthly report. And then you have this business areas for today. So we were looking at 56415 as our first hypo on the downside. We are looking for a test of 56290. On the upside, you can see, just remember these business areas and you can make out how one by one we took out all of them and we stalled right at the uppermost business area of today. The highs of today in Bank Nifty futures was 57030. So this is how you have to do your homework, and the auction will be in sync with what you have understood. And you can see when we started the move higher, all of us, even in the VTrender live desk, we were looking at these levels and we were looking at this as the ultimate objective, 57026. So I'll just now open up the future chart. So I have the Nifty futures profile chart on my left and the order flow on the right. So I'll start with the Friday's open. So you can see this is the 3-day composite which we were talking about, and this Friday's open. The open was right below this value. You can see the in the order flow, it was an open high start at 25170. So we opened, tested this value, got rejected, and then we went on to probe lower. So the reason why it was open rejection reverse was we did not break this VWAP at the open. We made an attempt to test this first and then we broke the VWAP. And once this broke, we saw sellers coming in, and then we went on to make a range extension lower, and we continued to we tagged this first unvisited VPOC of 25054, which was there in the business areas for that day, and we made this new similar lows of 25981. So you can see how the volumes continue to remain on the higher side. They did not drift. And here in the C side, you can see the volumes were in fact the highest. 8390 is the volumes we got in the seaside. This is the 15-minute order flow. So this is telling you, we spoke about how we got an extension handle at this IBL. So when you're breaking the initial balance with huge volumes, you know that you can expect more downside. And the opening volumes were just 5689. So it is very clear that there was fresh uh, volume which added in the seaside on Friday, which gave us this big move. And we got this range extension also, and we went on to hit the 24981. So, but then once we hit 24981, what did we see? We saw the POC shifting lower. So this is the first sign. When the POC is shifting, you will definitely want to book your profits if you are short and hold to cost. So this 25070 would be your cost, and that never came back. And what we did was we got the POC shifted higher to 25032 into the close. And this is what we did on Friday. So profile wise, we have already seen how we had made a report of this and how we were ready. So let me now come to today's profile and discuss what we have done today and compare with today's order flow. So what did we do today? We had the 15-minute order flow on the right and the market profile chart on the left. So you can see how we opened below the POC of Friday. 25032 we had marked as our reference, and in the business areas, the first business area on the downside was 25027, which was the MTPO low. So you can see how in the order flow we have got buy zeros on the buy side, 5 rows of zeros. So definitely it is telling us the auction wants to go lower. We got some big reds, 800 red, 700, 776 red, and we continue to probe lower. So this is how you identify the open type. The first 15 minutes of the auction is for identifying the open type. We have lot of material on the forum under the glossary section. We also have covered open types in the video. We have an e-course which explains all these setups. So what we do, we see the first volumes of the first 15 minutes. It was 10,900 contracts, and the average volumes are just 7,000 contracts. So the volume today was 1.5 times the average volumes. So that is the reason we went on to tag that lower reference of 24949. But you can see in the A period lows, what we saw here, zeros on the buy side was replicated with zeros on the sell side as we made this lows. So this was telling that the supply is not adding below 24945. And what did we do? We came back above VWAP. This POC was important, 25,000. So if we get back above this, no longer we can be bearish. So what we saw in the B period was, so open rejection reverse is a open type which comes a little late. Otherwise, the first 15 minutes of the day are good enough to identify the open type. But in an open rejection reverse, the move comes later. Sometimes, not all the times. So that is what happened today. And this move, which came in the second part of the A period, which we took out the VWAP, got back above VWAP, which was followed by this big move in the B period. You can see this big move in the B period has left an extension handle right at this POC of previous day. And we have got back above this value area high in the VWAP. 25044 was our first bullish hypo for the day. And you can see how this became our reference. We took this out with zeros in the order flow. So we knew that we are looking for more upside. And what would those upside be? We had those references marked. We had this 25135 marked as our higher objective, which is where the highs of today tagged. Yes, we just stall. We made an RS and then we made a probe lower. And you see this probe lower where we made that pullback low in the J period. Where did it stop? It stopped right at the VWAP of yesterday. So VWAP of Friday actually was a supply reference. But what is it showing? It is showing us change of polarity. Why is it showing a change of polarity? Because the VWAP of today is giving us a RB signal. So when you are getting this, and when you already have an extension handle in the morning, which has not been taken out at the POC of previous day, you know that you can look for a spike higher. And that is what happened today. Once we took this support, we got RBs at the order flow. You can see how we got back higher into the close, and we tagged that 25135 objective which we had in the daily report. So this is what we do on a daily basis: work out the references, mark the important levels, and then after the auction opens, we identify the open type and then look at how the auction progresses in the initial balance. And if the volumes in the both of them are good, we look for that range extension trade. Today we did not get the 1.5 IB to 2 IB because we had a huge initial balance range, both in Bank Nifty as well as Nifty. In fact, in Bank Nifty, we had a 482 point range, and Nifty it was a 200 point range in the initial balance, which was more than double of the normal initial balance range which you have. So that is when you need to know that, because you already have a big range in the initial balance, which was also the case on Friday, you need to be little bit uh, lesser. You need to be little bit more lesser in expectance of what the auction can do later. So this is what we have done today. What would be our references for tomorrow? So because I'll just quickly turn this into the 30-minute order flow, and you can see how this IB30, which had activated in the morning, got completely reversed. And once we got back about this 25038, we never came back to test this level. So this that would continue to be a reference, but on the upside we will have to, because we have closed in a spike, it is a very small spike, we will have to be above this 25140 to remain bullish. And what are we looking for on the upside? We are looking for a test of this value area low here at open tomorrow. If we test this and if we get an IB3, we remain above this value area low, you are looking for the 80% rule with a test of this 25230, which is a VPOC on the daily chart, and this 25256, the value area high. So this is the setup for tomorrow, and we will look for the volumes which come in tomorrow at the open and identify the open type. If it is a strong open in favor of the buyers, then we will definitely look for these as our upside targets. So that is as far as the Nifty futures is concerned. Now one final look at what the Bank Nifty did. And same thing, Bank Nifty futures is on the left. This is the Friday's profile chart, and the order flow is on the right. So Friday, what we saw in Bank Nifty was a open and test of this value, 2-day value. You can see this. This POC was our reference. We opened with a gap down well below this POC. So you can see this part in the auction. This part where it is making an attempt to get into this value is showing very low volumes. So this is showing this is kind of rejecting this entry. So once you get this rejection, you know that the direction of the auction is to the opposite way, and that is the reason this low was right where the monthly POC was. So we were very clear that shorting here would not be ideal because the POC is also here, but a break of this would give us a good short trade, and that is what happened. You can see when we broke this, we got some big sellers, and we continued to probe lower, and we had a quick drop of 350 points. So again in Bank Nifty, Friday's open was an open rejection reverse because it made an attempt to get into this value, got rejected, and the volumes were above average. And then volumes kind of stalled down, and you can see so very clearly, you can see when the volume become lower, auction begins to coil. This second 15-minute and the next 15-minute bar were completely inside and almost similar because there were no volumes. So volumes being less is telling you the auction is not doing much. And then what do you see? In the close of the B period, the volumes have again gone up, and then the C side has gotten us even more higher volumes, and at the same time we have broken this monthly POC level. So this tells us, so this is a classic combination of how we use the structure with the volumes, order flow and market profile. That is what we use, and that is what gives us the best setups. So open type showed us open rejection reverse, but we took support at the monthly POC. And then once we broke the monthly POC, just like how we left an extension handle at 25070 in Nifty futures, we left an extension handle at this 56606, and we went on to drop by 250 points. So here we made the lows, and then we began to form a balance, but then we were not able to take the VWAP out. So we closed as a B-shaped profile. 56416 was our reference, and we needed to remain below this value for more downside. So what did we do today? Let us now have a look at today's order flow chart along with the market profile. I know it is taken us long, but we'll just finish this last part before we wind up for the day. So here you can see we opened and made a look down below previous lows. I was mentioning how this 56350 was also mentioned in the spot chart. Here the low was right there. So what did we do? We got nothing over here, immediately got rejected back into previous value. We did the 80% rule, and in doing the 80% rule, what did we do? We left an initiative buying tail. So when you are leaving an initiative buying tail at previous value, you know that the direction is in that move. So that is what happened. Bank Nifty continued to trend up higher, and this was our final objective of the day, which we also marked in the business areas. And you can see how right when we hit that objective, we stalled, and after that we did not make higher highs. We came back lower to test the VWAP and this extension reference. So I'll just quickly go to the 30 minutes so that we can see what the important 30-minute references of today was and how we held that. So you can see how this buying tail was at 56724, and the lows of C was right here, and that is where we took support in the next TPOs. So this will continue to remain our support, and on the upside we will have to get above this VWAP of 56076 for a move back into this today composite. So this is how we do our homework, put up the reports monthly, weekly, daily, and then use the order flow and the market profile setups to take trades. Because only when you have a process which is well defined and you understand what is happening on each time frame, that is where it is worth putting your money at risk. You cannot just put your money at risk on random trades expecting or hoping that the market will reward you. We have to do this homework, we have to be prepared, and only when you are prepared you will be able to make most of the trades process. So that is what we do. We plan the trade and trade the plan, and all these reports which are put up on the website are only to help you for that. So that is it for today from my side, guys. This is a long session, so I'll not take too much of time. For any queries, you can mail us at support@vtrender.com. You can also ping me on X. My ID is at Uttam Goel. So we'll be happy to answer any of your queries. And if you have any suggestions, you can please even forward them to us. So thank you guys for joining in. Have a great evening, and signing off for today.